Daf Yomi is Mesechas Horayos, Daf Yudalad Horayos 14. Today's daf is dedicated for Shmir for the Chayilei Matzah for the Shvuyim and Yeshua for Am Yisrael. In this Eis Tzara, the daf is going to lead us to the last daf of Mesechas Horayos and also the last daf of Seder Nezikin. I want to thank Hashem for giving us this possibility and this strength to be able to complete Horayos and Nezikin, and God willing, we'll be able to complete Kodshim together and finish the whole Shas together. We're going to start on 13b, approximately 20 lines from the bottom. The Gemara tells us, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, V'mei Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Nishnes, Mishnah Zu. In the days of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, this Mishnah was taught. What Mishnah is that? That there was a Brisa that we had cited earlier that said that there's a distinction between the where Poker Tov, good morning, that there's a distinction between how you stand up for a Nasi. When the Nasi comes in, everybody was supposed to stand up. And when the Bezdin walks in, what? When the Bezdin walks in, the two rows closest were supposed to stand up. When the Chacham walks in, only the 4 Amos, only within those 4 Amos had to stand up. So the Gemara says that Brisa was only first taught in the days of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. What's the reasoning? Because the reasoning is, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel was the Nasi, Rabbi Meir was the Chacham, and Rabbi Nassan was the Av Bezdin. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Hasan, when Rabbi Shimon Gamliel was there, and so originally speaking, what happened was everybody would get up in front of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Meir, when Rabbi Meir was there, and Rabbi Nassan was there, everybody would also get up. Everybody would get up. So I'm Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said, well, nobody's can tell the difference between me and them. Talking Hamas Nisa. So therefore he arranged this brisa that when the Nasi walks in, everybody gets up. When the Av Bezdin walks in, the 2 rows closest. And when the Chacham walks in, only the 4 Amos. So he established that halacha. Talking Amos Nisa. Hu Yoma Rabbi Nassan. So it just so happened to be, or you could say it's convenient, day that he established it, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Nassan were not there. So when they saw the next day, so they saw that people weren't getting up like they used to. Amri, my eye, what's going on? They said to them, this is what Rabbi Shimon Gamliel arranged. I'm the Chacham, and you're the Av Bezdin. Not Gin Milsa Kiladi done. Let's arrange something that'll help us. What should we do to him? Name away Goy Uktzim Duesley. He said, let's test him on Uktzim. Let's ask him to give a drasha on the tractate Uktzim. It's the last Mishnah in Shas. And he's not going to know it. But given the old Gamar, and since he's not going to know it, name away, we'll say to him, Mi Malal Gvuras Hashem Yeshmiya Kol So we'll say to him, who will be able to praise God? Lamina El Malal Gvuras Hashem. Misha Yachol Hashmiya Kol Tilosav, somebody who's able to say all of his praises. Navre, should we get rid of him? Vave Ana Av Bezdin Nasi. So should we get rid of him? Then once we get rid of him, I'll be the Av Bezdin and you'll be the Nasi. So you see that this is what Rabbi Meir said to Rabbi Nassan. Shaminu Rabbi Yaakov ben Karshi. So Rabbi Yaakov ben Karshi, who's not a figure who's often cited in Shas, I don't even know if he's cited any other time. He said, so this is going to cause a huge embarrassment. Also, Yosef Achore Elise de Rashbag, he sat behind the attic, or Shimon Gamliel, Pashat, Garas, Vitana. He started to study Mesechas Oktzin, he started to say it over and over again and learn it. So he said, well, if that's the case, so Amar Mai Dekama. So Rosh Hashanah says, what's going on in front of me? What is this? What's going on here? What's going on? Maybe there's something in the base medrash, a plot against me. Yoav Daite Vigarse. So he says, you know what? I better study Uktzin. So then the next day they said, let's hear what you have to say about Uktzin. So he was prepared. He gave a big drasha. Basar Ukim, after he gave his drasha, Amro, he said to them, Garmina Kisiftanan. He said, if I hadn't studied it, then you would have embarrassed me. Pocket Vavkinam Baby Drasha. He issued a command and he threw them out of the base of Medrash. Havikatzvi Kushiasa Bapitka, they would write their questions on a note, Vishadu, and they were throwing them down into base Medrash. Vishadu Hasam. The Mifrak, the ones that were answered were answered. The Lave Mifrak, the ones that were not answered, Kasve, Peiruke, Vishadu. Then the ones that weren't answered, they would write the answers and throw it down. Amahu Rabbi Yossi, Torah mi b'chutz v'ani b'fnim. Rabbi Yossi said, Torah is outside and I'm inside. That doesn't make any sense. We should be outside with Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Nassan, because they represent the Torah. And this whole context of the story is that we're talking about who are the ones, the Kadima, in terms of saving people. And we said who comes first, but in terms of who gets saved, lifeboat ethics. But then we said that if you have Torah, it comes before everybody else. And so they had the Torah, so they should have come first. So Amar and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Nailinu. Okay, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, fine, we'll bring them in. Miu niknasinu, but we're going to penalize them. We're not going to say any teaching in their name. Asiku Rabbi Meir. Asiku Rabbi Meir Acherem or Rabbi Nasan Yesh Omrim. So they decided to call Rabbi Meir Acherem, and they called Rabbi Nasan Yesh Omrim. They called Rabbi Meir Acherem, and they called Rabbi Nasan the Yesh Omrim. So Achvalu Bechamayo. So also this is a problem because you're supposed to say whoever says call maybe Davar B'Shem Omrim, maybe go Omer Davar B'Shem Omrim, maybe go. Whoever says something in the name of somebody else brings redemption to the world. We're going to end the Gemara Megillah. The Marshal also is bothered by this question. So here, maybe that's why the redemption hasn't come, because we're saying and not signing in the name of Rabbi Meir or name of Rabbi Nassan. So, but the Maharsha discusses why does it say Acherim and not Acher, and Yesh Omrim and not Yesh Omer. He says that was to encourage people to look to see who said it actually. Anyway, Achvu l'chomayu. So they came to a dream. Came to Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Nassan in dream. Zilu paisilu Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Go and appease Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Nassan Azal. Rabbi Nassan went and apologized. Rabbi Meir, go Azal. Rabbi Meir refused to go. Amar divrei chalom aslomal v'marid. He says, the dreams, you don't have to listen to dreams. Ki Azal Rabbi Nassan, Amar Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Nihida ani ucha, kamar davucha, umehavi avbezin, shavinucha nami nasi. He said, okay, yeah, you've got the belt of your father. You got the gold belt of your father to be... Rashi says, you have the distinguishedness of your father to make you the head of the bezin, but to be the nasi, it's not going to help you to be the nasi. You don't have the yichus. So he says, so anyway, that was the story. But the story now continues, and it's presumably the next part of the story takes place after Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Nassan have died, because now Rabbi was teaching Rabbi Shimon his son, and he said Acherim Omrim, Acherim. He doesn't call Rabbi Meir; he just says the others say, "You are you Tamura, lo ayakarav." If it was a Tamura, it wouldn't have been brought. So what's first of all we have to go back and go slowly. What's a Tamura? A Tamura is an animal that was a kodshim animal, and you say, well, I want to switch out. Let's say this sheep for that sheep. So that's not halacha is. We're going to get to this in Kachim. Halacha is that's not allowed. It's a prohibition from the Torah. But since you did it, both of them have the sanctity of the same animal. So that's the idea of what a tamura is. But now we have a dispute. And this was a machokes, and so this they're quoting here now a mishnah that. From the Seches Pachoros about the following situation. So there's a halacha called Meiser Behema. The 10th animal that comes out has to be brought to the bait. You say this is Meiser, this is the 10th one, and you have to count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the 10th one is the Meiser animal. You take it to Jerusalem. bring it as a korban and you eat it there. But let's say, says the Mishnah Bechoros, when the 9th one came out, you called it the 10th one. And the 10th one came out, you called it the 9th one. And when the 11th one came out, you called it the 10th one. So now you messed up all three. So the halacha is that the 9th one, basically you allow it to grow to get a blemish, that you allow it to graze, and then you could eat it regularly. The 10th one, under those circumstances, the 10th animal, we say that such an animal is considered the meiser animal. And then, but what about the 11th animal, which he called the 10th animal? So that there's a dispute between Rebbe Meir and Rebbe Yehuda. And Meir's position that since it was became that under those circumstances, that animal becomes a korban shlomim. But the question is, can you make it into a tamura? So Rebbe Meir's position that since this is korban shlomim, it becomes a tamura, whereas Rebbe Yehuda's position is that this is going to be like a tamuras meiser, and so therefore a tamura does not make another tamura, so it can't make it. And so Rebbe Meir says to him, if you're correct that it's a tamura, then we shouldn't have been brought at all, because the meiser animal was not brought. It wouldn't have been brought. And I also was thinking that, like, on literary analysis, if it was an exchange, and these rabbis were trying to exchange the others, so Rebbe Meir's position is, if it was an exchange, it wouldn't have been brought, and he was trying to exchange for the others. Anyway, so Amaro Mi'em Alalu. So, and when Rebbe taught this to Rebbe Shimon, so Rebbe was the son of Rebbe Shimon Gamliel, and now he was teaching it to Rebbe Shimon, who was the grandson of Rebbe Shimon Gamliel, who was the son of Rebbe. So Rebbe Shimon was the next generation. He said, who are these people who we are drinking their waters, but we're not mentioning their names? So Rebbe said to his son, these are people who want to uproot your honor and the honor of your father. They're no good. So Rebbe Shimon said, listen, they're no longer here. Their love, their hatred, their jealousy, it's already departed from the world. They're gone. Give it up already. The fight's over. The enemy has perished, but their swords are living on eternally. He says, yeah, that pasuk is where their actions were successful. But Rabbanan lo anu masau. But these guys, these rabbis, they weren't successful. The coup didn't work. Hadar asni. So then he repeated, Amrulay Mishum. He then said it. So he said, okay. So Rabbi Shimon said, Amrullah, Rabbi said, Hadar asni Amru Mishum Rabbi Meir. He said they said in the name of Rabbi Meir, meaning to say finally he quoted Rabbi Meir. If this 11th animal was just a tamura, it would never have been brought in the first place. So therefore it's not. It's able to become a tamura. So Amarava, I feel Rabbi the Anvasana, who even Rabbi, who is the most humble man, we say at the end of Mishnah, the last Daf and Sota says that when Rabbi died, humility died. So Rabbi was the most humble man on the face of the earth after Moshe Rabbeinu. And about Rabbi, he was only able to say Amru Mishum Rabbi Meir. He said. He didn't say Rabbi Meir said. He said they said in the name of Rabbi Meir. He couldn't bring him to say it. Shimon Meir Amar Rabbi Meir Amar. He didn't say Rabbi Meir himself said it. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So since we're talking about this whole dispute about who comes first, which one to save first, now we're talking about which Torah scholar comes first. Rabbi Yochanan Pligi bar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabbanan, we had this Gemara in Brachos, we had this Gemara in Bava Metzia. So he says that Rabbi Shimon and Gamliel and the Rabbanan have an argument. Chadamar Sinai Adif, Chadamar Oker Haram Adif. They had an argument in general. Who's better? Is Sinai, the one who remembered all the Torah, the one who remembered all the Mishnayos and Braisos, or the one who was Oker Haram, the one who was able to uproot the Sugya? He knew how to uproot it with his analysis. So Rav Yosef, so they argued which was better. Now, a few generations later, they still didn't solve this argument. Rav Yosef was Sinai and Rabbah was Oker Haram. So Shochu Ataman, so they sent Eretz Yisrael. Ezemem Kodem, who comes first? Shochu, they sent back Sinai Adif. Sinai comes first. Why? The Amar Akol Tzricha L'Marech Hataya. Everybody needs the master of the wheat. Nowadays, we're all Sinai. We all have the computer. So maybe nowadays it should be different. But in those days, they didn't have the computer. So the computer was the one who came first, the one who remembered everything. Even though Rav Yosef was one who they wanted to be the Rosh Hashiva, he didn't accept it upon himself. So now we have, by the way, the opposite. Before they were arguing who gets to be it. Rabbi Meir was trying to do a coup. But in this case, Rav Yosef, out of humility, says, not me. Melech Rabba Esrim and Tartan Shana. Rabba ruled for 22 years. Other Melech Rav Yosef, and then Rav Yosef ruled. The Kol Shani the Melech Rabba, Rav Yosef, Afilu Umnu Abeisa Locholav. And all the years that Rabba ruled, Rav Yosef didn't even have a bloodletter come to his house. There's a lot of question, what does this phrase mean? Even a bloodletter didn't come to his house. Some say he humbled himself. He went to Rav Yosef. He went to Rabba's house. Some say it means that as a protection for the fact that he was so humble, he didn't even need to let the blood. Abaye v'Rav of Rabbi Zer v'Rav Bar Masna v'Yasif v'Vitzricha Reisha. They all needed a Rosh Hashiva, these four. So Amri called Amar Milsa v'Lamafrech v'Ave Reisha Dekol. They said whoever could say a teaching and will not be challenged, he's going to be the Rosh Hashiva. Ifrech. The Kulu Ifrach, all of them were challenged. Abaye Ifrach, but Abaye was able to teach something that was not challenged. Chazia, Rava, Abaye, the Gava, Reisha. Well, some say it's Rava, some say it's Rava. It's a question who it is. But he saw that Abaye's head was elevated. Amroi Nachmani Pasach. He says Nachmani, which is another name for Abaye. Rashi tells us several places in the Shas that his name was really Nachmani, and they called him. Some say because his father's name was that Rabbi raised him, was father's name was Nachman. Some say that because it was Lashon Gnai. Rashi says that maybe he was still the student of Rav Nachman. But anyway, Rabba says to him, Nachmani Pesach, you start. Ve'ema. Ibayu Rabbi Zer v'Rabbi Bar of Masna. Rabbi Zer Rabbi Bar Masna were asking the question. So they had the following question. They said, Hai Minayo Adif. They want to know which one of these two was greater, Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Bar of Masna. Rabbi Zera was Charef Umaksha. Rabbi Zera was very sharp and he knew how to ask very hard questions. But Rabbi Bar of Masna, Matan Umasik. He was deliberate and he would come to a good conclusion at the end of it. So which one of them was greater? Why do we need to know who's greater? Well, maybe you have to know who to give more honor to, or who do you have to save if they're both drowning in the ocean. So what's the answer? So the Gemara says take it. We leave that question unresolved, and as Jeff here pointed out yesterday, that the whole Seder Nezikin and all of Mesachas Horayos ends with this question of Teku. God willing, we're going to do a siyum on Shabbos, on Seder Mesachas Horayos, and also on all of Seder Nezikin. But what I like to do now, we never want to stop. We just don't want to stop, but we have to we continue. And so therefore, we start the next Masechta, which is the Vachim. The Vachim is right there, Jeff, on the shelf there is the Vachim. So the Vachim is we begin Kachim. We begin Kachim, Baruch Hashem. It should be the top one. So Kachim is the idea of learning about all the karbanos. And some say that this is the most important thing because since we can't bring the karbanos today, but we're going to do this at 8 o'clock. So since we can't do the karbanos today, we study about the karbanos. It's as though we brought all the karbanos. Now the first line of the Mishnah in the Zvachim says, "Kol hazvachim shenizbechu shelo lishman kesherim." All the zvachim that are slaughtered with the wrong intent are ksherim. All the karbanos that are slaughtered with the wrong intent are ksherim. Ela shelo alu ba'al l'shem chovad. It's a kosher karban, but they have not fulfilled their obligation. Rashi says, what are we talking about here? Now we have Rashi and Tosfos on Zvachim. It's beautiful. So it says, "Shenishchad ol Hashem shalom." When you take an ol offering, we're going to learn what all of these karbanos are, and you slaughter for the wrong karban. You slaughter for shalom. not clear. Is it a fundamental dispute? Do they have to say it or even just think that you're doing it wrong? This is the whole issue with respect to intent in general, also with respect to the Torah. You have to say before you write God's name, Hashem Kedushas Hashem. Well, let's see, we're just thinking it. So that's the question here too. What does it mean, Shalol Lishman, that they had the wrong thought or the wrong intent? So in all these cases, it's ksherim. In all these cases, they're kosher. You're allowed to sprinkle the blood and to burn their innards and to eat the fats. And even though you get a mitzvah, even though it's a mitzvah to do it for the right purpose, fine, it's still kosher, but you haven't fulfilled your obligation. Chutz min ha-pesach v'achatas bizmano, chutz min ha-pesach v'achatas. Ha-pesach bizmano v'achatas v'chol zman. Except if you brought a Pesach on Erev Pesach, and then you had the wrong intent, that's not kosher. Or achatas for the wrong intent, that's going to be fundamentally disqualified. She says, a Pesach bizmano pasol shalol lishma. For bring the Pesach on Erev Pesach, then it's going to be disqualified with the wrong intent. Kol zman shlitaso. Anytime that it's a time where it's supposed to be slaughtered, i.e. from the noon onward of a kodem wakem, but before that and afterwards, we're going to say that the Pesach is really a shlamim. And we said that all these vacham are ksherin if it's shalol lishman. So this is the beginning of Maseches Vacham, and wanted to point out just this idea that the Maseches Vacham starts with all of the karbanos that are not lishman are ksherim. But that's the Gemara is going to say. What does it mean, shalol lishman? It means not that you have the. So the Gemara is going to discuss what it means, shalol lishman. But we see from here that it's kosher, but the owner has not fulfilled his obligation. The fundamental idea about karbanos is that if you don't have intent, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah properly. Because the whole purpose of a karban is the intent. If you don't have the right intent, then you're just killing an animal. So that you can't fulfill if there's no intent. So if there's no intent, you have not fulfilled the mitzvah of the karban. Okay, we'll stop here. We have start slichos at exactly 7, so we're going to stop a few minutes earlier every day. Yasher koach and shkoyach to everybody.